magnets and list building, again, beginning with that end in mind, you just want to think about where you're leading people. And we see this in real life too. I just gave this example the other day. Like if you're at the beach and on the boardwalk, and when there's someone out there with free samples at the candy shop, they're gonna be holding out a tray of fudge of free samples at the candy shop.
It smells so good.
It does.
You can't walk past it.
It does. And that's the lead magnet that's gonna bring people into the candy shop. But it would be misaligned if they had candy, on the tray as the free sample, and then you came into the candy shop and it was actually pizza. So again, it's kind of figuring out that end in mind. Where are we leading people, and what's this next natural step before that they can take, that we can nurture, we can give value, and that's just going to make sense for them.
I am super excited to have this individual with us today. There's so much that I can talk to her about. I actually had to think about narrowing down what I wanted to speak to her about today. So this lovely expert, she helps online entrepreneurs launch courses, memberships, and coaching programs. She's the co-CEO along with her other half, Paul Pruitt, of Adaptive Marketing Membership, and she's also the co-host of the Online Marketing Podcast. And on top of all that, she, like I, loves Peloton. So welcome to the show today, Melissa Pruitt.
Excellent. Yes, I am a lover of Peloton, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I want to dig in because there's so much that we can talk about, but I want to focus in on list building. So just a kind of a silly question first. So what comes first, the list or the offer?
That's a great question. I think sometimes people can really get stuck on that, where they feel like they need to have a list at a certain size before they can even put an offer out there. It's kind of like that, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
And I think it's one of those things we need to look at more. We can be doing this at the same time. As you're building your list, you're also refining your offer and really getting fine-tuned with your audience, their needs, knowing their problems a little bit more, so we really can speak into that with the offers that we put out there.
Okay. So as far as the list goes, because obviously we can build a huge list, right? And it wouldn't do us any good. So how do we structure what we do so it really, really targets our dream customer, our ideal customer?
Yeah, great question. So the biggest problem I see with people when they build a list, and we all start out this way, we have a lot of ideas. We want to put things out there that are going to help people with our lead magnets, but we really don't do an assessment of our audience and their problems. And what happens is that we put a lot of great information out there, random information, and then what happens is we get attract a random audience back. So one of the first things that we need to do is really get specific and know the problems and challenges that our audience is having. And sometimes when I talk about this, people kind of glaze over, but this is really a good opportunity for you to do some research and really get to know your audience and the problems and challenges that they're having. Because if we can get super specific on that, then we can create list builders that are relevant to those problems that they're experiencing. It's going to be perfectly aligned with our offers as well. And then we're going to bring the right people in by speaking into the problems that they're talking about.
Okay. So I understand why people glaze over with that. So how do we find out what type of problems they're having? Because that's not always the easiest thing, especially if you are new and you're starting out, you don't have an audience. What do you do?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I like to keep things simple, especially when it comes to research. And like I said, you get that glazed over. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't get into entrepreneurship to do research, but this is actually, it can be a lot of fun because you can really get to know your audience really well. So one of the first things that I would do if I was just starting out is go to the places where your audience hangs out online. So typically there's lots of community groups that speak into the problems, that speak into the things that they're wanting more help with. So if you could go into those groups and first just start off by observing. You're going to observe, you're going to look into the group, you're going to see what questions come up all the time, and you're going to take note of those questions. And you especially want to pay attention to the questions that where you see we like to call them the eye rolling posts. They come
Okay.
up all the time, and we call them the eye rolling posts because they're the questions that a more experienced person would look at and say, oh my gosh, they're asking that question again. But that's the types of questions we need to really pay attention to, because obviously it's a question that someone needs help with. And if we can address those questions in the list builders that we put out there, then we really can, again, bring a perfectly aligned person into our world, and then eventually lead them to our paid offers.
Okay. Okay. No, that actually is a great tip.
Yeah.
So I've heard both you and Paul say this in the past about begin with the end in mind. So what
Yes.
do you mean about that?
Yes. So, again, as entrepreneurs, we're very creative. We like to put things out there. And I'm all about, when you're first getting started, definitely try new things, put things out there. That's like, honestly, like one of the first biggest hurdles is just putting yourself out there to letting people know what it is that you do. But then as you start to refine your message a little bit more and get more in tune with your audience, we really want to think about where we are leading people. So again, this is all about that alignment piece. With our offers, what kind of problems are our offers solving? What are we helping people with? And then beginning with that in mind, knowing that that's the end goal of where we want to take people, what's the step before that that we could help people with to get to that point where they would be interested in our offer?
Okay.
So for example, we have our adaptive membership, and one of the things that we have inside of that membership is our Facebook ads course. So
Mhm.
someone that's really interested in Facebook ads and having that as part of their marketing strategy is going to be interested in other things leading up to that. So as a great list builder, we have something called our 50 high converting headlines templates. And this is a template that helps people with their, knowing just what kind of headlines to put out there if they're thinking about doing ads. Well, someone that would really want that juicy template, that's really excited about that, is definitely going to be a great candidate for the Facebook ads course. We wouldn't put something else out in front of there that wouldn't make sense. It just is a natural alignment.
Mhm.
We with lead magnets and list building, again, beginning with that end in mind, you just want to think about where you're leading people. And we see this in real life too. I just gave this example the other day. Like if you're at the beach and on the boardwalk, and when there's someone out there with free samples at the candy shop, they're going to be holding out a tray of fudge of free samples at the
Right, and it
candy
smells
shop.
so good
It
that you can't walk
does.
past it.
It does. And that's the lead magnet that's going to bring people into the candy shop. But it would be misaligned if they had candy, on the tray as the free sample, and then you came into the candy shop and it was actually pizza. So again, it's kind of figuring out that end in mind. Where are we leading people, and what's this next natural step before that they can take, that we can nurture, we can give value, and that's just going to make sense for them.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned Facebook ads. So let me ask you about that. So actually, let me just even step back a little bit. So let's say you want to get in touch with your ideal, your dream customer.
Mhm.
Are there easier ways or easy ways to do that when you're first starting out, and then later on tell me about Facebook ads?
Yes, because that's what people's minds are like. Oh my gosh, I have to do all these things.
Right. It's almost like I would say a little bit of an overwhelm or something when you know that you have to get this out and you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get it out there? So
Yeah.
what's your advice?
Yeah. So let me separate the two before we get into the Facebook ads.
Mhm.
What you first asked about, just first starting out, how we can get in front of the right people. Because I think there's a lot of things that we can do that we sometimes take for granted, that we think, oh my gosh, it seems too simple, but it's actually the simple tasks that we do that make the biggest impact.
Right.
So I'm a big believer in relationships and building connections and having one-on-one conversations. And I think that that's something that a lot of times now in this crazy world, we overlook. We think of the next shiny object. We think of social media and, like, the cool reels and videos that we're going to put out and Facebook ads. And those are all wonderful, great things. And I definitely think, you can incorporate them into your marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, really with marketing, it's about sharing your expertise, giving value, and building those relationships. So
Mhm.
when you're first starting out, one of the first things that, I did, especially like in a platform just to kind of get people to know me a little bit better, is I would approach people and say, hey, I would love to come and give value to your audience. Especially if I know it was someone that was super aligned, that had people that I could definitely nurture and share, and it could be a win-win for both of us. And so I made that list of those individuals that I would love to reach out to, have that connection with, and see how I can give value without asking for anything in return. Because again, the more that you can do this, you can get on people's radar, you can give value, you can be in front of their audiences. A lot of times people are really understanding about letting you share things that you're doing as well, because it's a win for them. It's allowing you to get in front of their audience, give their audience some nurturing and some information. And it's a nice
Absolutely.
information trade there. But then also what's great too from that is that that's where those relationships can build, because once you help someone out, again, it's natural that they're going to want to, help you out as well. So they might refer you to someone else that you might think is a really good fit. And that's just a great way to build your network. So I would definitely, if you're just starting out, make that list of maybe like those 10 people that you would love to give back, and how can you give back and nurture their audiences and give back to them and help them out without really asking for anything in return, but as a way to just get yourself out there on those different platforms. And by doing that, as well as, when people are approaching you on your social media platforms or in your DMs, really taking the time to answer questions and give back and have just that natural conversation. A lot of times they go right, I see it happen all the time where you get that DM where it's like someone's giving you information about their offer.
Right. I mean, that's the craziest thing. I every time, and yeah, whether Instagram or Facebook, I'm like, who are these people and what are they doing?
Exactly, exactly. And it feels really gross, and
It
it
does.
doesn't feel
Yes.
good. So we
Hmm.
don't want to do that, but it's how can we, if someone approaches you, can you give back and have a value exchange and a conversation? And then when it makes sense, say, hey, you know what? I have a great podcast episode about this. Why don't you go over there and check that out? And you can lead them to a free offer, or if you have a paid offer that could be potentially great after you've had a conversation and kind of know a little bit about them, you can lead them to that as well too. So I think having those natural conversations is really key, whether it's one-on-one conversations of people in your DMs, or if you're talking to other people to collaborate for speaking engagements. That's such a great way to build your audience, and again, expand your reach. And then when it comes to ads are only going to amplify what you have going on. They're not going to fix your funnel. They're going to just
Okay.
amplify what's going on. And Paul talks a lot about this in detail with Facebook ads. And that's why having these foundational principles in place first and knowing where we're leading people in our funnels, beginning with that end in mind, is so important. Because if you put an ad out, but you're not really clear on where you're leading people, the steps of communication in between, if there's holes, then the ads are not going to fix it. So I would be more focused, especially when I'm first starting off, with really building a strong foundation of where you're leading people with your funnel. And then also those direct communication pieces as well, so that you can have individuals to talk to bring into your world.
Right, right. Absolutely. I think that's a great approach because Facebook ads can appear to be daunting. So it's always good to take things stepwise. Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
with your dream customer, with your ideal customer, it's the same thing as far as how do you lead them down the path? So is it a lead magnet? Is it providing content, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those? What's the best strategy to, I mean, the way I always look at things is when you're with someone, a potential customer, first off, what is it that you can do for them?
Yes.
How can, it's all about them. And how can you, in essence, take their hand and lead them into a transformation? So, what are like some good vehicles to do that?
Absolutely. Well, when it's a question, should I do this or should I do that? My answer is usually yes. Try.
Do both.
Should I do both? Try. Because really, what this is all about is testing out to see what makes sense and resonates with your audience, and do it in a way again that's aligned with the problems and challenges that they're experiencing. So, like I said, if you're doing the research just by, like, for example, that example I gave about going into the group and figuring out what those questions are, the problems, then
Mhm.
I would make sure, number one, that everything that I put out there on social media, as well as my lead magnet, is around those problems and challenges to make it really relevant to them. So, any of your social media content, if you know the questions and challenges that the people are having, if you know what their aspirations and dreams are, again, if you've done the research and are really able to get fine tuned in that, then all of your content should reflect on that. Because naturally, then someone coming to your social media account is going to look and say, oh my gosh, she's talking about X, Y, and Z, that's exactly what I need help with. Or you might share a tip or a strategy that really resonates with them. And then they're just going to naturally want to learn more from you. They're going to trust you. They're going to really be, feel like they're heard from you because again, you're speaking their language. You're speaking into things that's really relevant for them right now. So all of that content that you put out for free on your social media content, or if you have a platform like a podcast or email marketing, whatever you put out there, making it really intentional. When we first start out with content, it's great to get content out there and get going. And like I said, get that start going when you're first starting out. But then
Right.
as you're really, fine tuning this, being intentional is super important because it's not just putting content out to put content out, but it's about the how that content again is going to begin with that end in mind, lead them to where we're taking them, which is our paid offers. And then the same thing with our lead magnets. When we bring people into our world through that free content, we could have a value give of something for free in exchange for their email that again is speaking into one problem that they're experiencing. We don't have to give away the farm here. We can just speak into that one problem, that one strategy, something that's going to help them get to the next step. And again, it gets them closer, one step closer into our world. So then later on, we can nurture them more and then lead them into paid offers where we can really do great transformation. Because our paid offers, that's where we can spend the time with them. We can dedicate,
Right.
more energy into that. And they can really get that transformation from us there.
You must have been reading my mind because I was planning on asking you about lead magnets and what makes a successful lead magnet.
Yes.
So tell me, because I know some folks, they'll use an ebook as a lead magnet. And an ebook will talk about a lot of different things
Mhm.
versus just one. So it's better, right, to just solve one problem, not like 10 problems.
If you have a lead magnet that's really fine tuned to solving one specific problem, I think that makes a really solid lead magnet that's filled with purpose. And
Hmm.
I think we also have to remember that everyone that we work with in our audience, they don't just have one problem. They're going to have multiple problems. So the way I look at lead magnets is I look at it as almost like just these different problems, these different spokes to a wheel, where you're speaking into this problem over here, or you're speaking into that problem over there. And one problem might resonate with one person and another problem might resonate with another person. You also might be reaching different people at different stages of that transformation that they're on. They might be in the early stages and really struggling, or they might be further along. So our lead magnets can also reflect where they are in the journey. And again, when we can speak to our audience, no matter where they are in the journey, or what problem they have, they're really going to feel heard and understood. So I like lead magnets that are specific to one problem, that solve one
Okay.
thing, and then also that create curiosity. Because if you solve that problem, which is awesome, and giving them that next tip, then they're going to say, okay, great. Now what? And that's where you can nurture that relationship and lead them to another way to work with you, whether it's like coaching or a course or a membership or whatever that you might do. That lead magnet is not designed to solve all their problems, but it's almost like a micro topic that you're solving,
Okay.
and then lead them to the next step to work with you in other opportunities.
Okay. So you said something about maybe sparking curiosity.
Yes.
So tell me, how do you do that? Like, is there a simple way to do that or what?
Yeah. So,
I know you
again,
probably have this great process. I just know you, Melissa. So,
it's like you want to, again, knowing your audience and who they are and getting in their head is a great way to spark curiosity. So the more that when you do that research, you can use language that they use, that's going to spark that curiosity because again, they're going to look at that on that landing page and say, oh my gosh, she's in my head. She totally gets me. So that's why I can't stress, even though the research might not sound so exciting, that's where you're going to get most of the information that you can create those lead magnets that resonate, that are aligned, that spark the curiosity. And again, it's that first step that's on their way towards that total transformation that they're seeking. So you might just be solving a micro topic, but imagine like how impactful that will be if they're having something happening in their life that's like annoying them. It doesn't even have to be like this huge problem. It could just be an annoyance that you're helping
okay.
them with and get through. That would be such a value add and so great for them. And then also at that point, then it begins that relationship with you where it's like, oh my gosh, she actually knows what she's talking about. Maybe I should pay attention and, continue to get these emails from her or listen to the podcast or wherever you want to lead them to nurture that relationship more to eventually go into some of your paid programs.
Okay. So I know everybody can find you on your podcast, which is called the Online Marketing Podcast. Any other place that you want them to go to other
Yeah,
than your podcast?
absolutely. So if people want to connect with me too, I hang out on Instagram a lot. So you can come over to Instagram. I'm at real Melissa Pruitt, like real, like a real person. And if you reach out to me, I DM everyone back. So you can shoot me a DM and we can have a conversation and start there. And then you'll also find me on Facebook as well. Same thing, real Melissa Pruitt. But I'm mostly on Instagram. That's where I usually hang out and have conversations.
So yes, that's great. That's great. Well, everybody needs to go. I mean, I'm telling you, Melissa and of course her husband Paul are amazing individuals that really have a passion to help entrepreneurs, and everyone needs to go to their podcast. Again, it's called the Online Marketing Podcast. All the information is going to be in the show notes. And if you like the show, please give us a 5-star review. And again, please check out Melissa and Paul Pruitt because they are really a great advocate for entrepreneurs. So thanks again, Melissa.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.